go. Good evening, everyone. My thanks to all of you for taking the time to join us this evening. As I mentioned in the invitation, computer security awareness training is now mandatory for all employees and volunteers that have an ACL business email account or have access to an ACL office network. And in many PCs today, that is in fact the case. And failure to complete this training will result in the cancellation of our ACL cyber liability policy. This is a new thing starting this year. And I'm sure you've seen the stories in the media, the ongoing stories about companies getting hacked. I was just Googling earlier today, so in the US, some statistics that explain why the underwriters are losing all sense of humor, cyber liability policies. There's a hacker attack every 39 seconds in the US, according to this website. Hackers steal 75 records every second, and cybercrime is more profitable than the global illegal drug trade. And in the US, there are over 715,000 cybersecurity experts employed and probably growing. So clearly, as an organization, we need to do what we can to protect ourselves, and to providing cybersecurity awareness training is a good place to start. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Kim Edwards of K2E Security, who has kindly agreed to provide this training for us tonight. I didn't know that at the time when I hired Kim. Kim has been supporting the national office for a couple of years now. Kim is a former air cadet from the small town of Englehart, Ontario. He graduated as an electrical engineer from the Royal Military College of Canada in 1991. And after serving another 5 years, he left the military to complete a master's degree in electrical engineering, specializing in cryptography at Queen's University. Kim started his career in information and network security at Nortel from 1998 to 2008. And in 2008, Kim started his own company, K2E Security, where he's been providing various professional consulting services in information and network security. His clients range from nonprofit organizations to private firms, to utility companies, and the federal government. So without further ado, I'll pass the floor over to Kim. If you have any questions, Kim is okay with taking those as we go. I'll act as moderator, and I'll keep an eye on the Q&A. Just post your questions there, and we'll do our best to answer those. And if we're unable to, because of volume, we'll follow up after the webinar with answers to all of the questions. So Kim, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Pierre, for that nice welcome. So I've been in the security space for quite some time. Today, we're going to focus on cybersecurity training. It's very key, and you guys play a key part in it. I can't emphasize how much you guys are a big role in keeping things secure. I do implementations, I do design, I do architecture, I also do training, but I can build the best security controls out there, and all it takes is a user to lack some awareness, and it's not from their fault, and they fall prey to a suspicious email or prey to a certain link, and next thing you know, there's an infection and it spreads across the organization and it spreads to your friends. So you guys are really, really a key part of security. And hopefully today you could take the things that you've learned here, apply them to going back to your air cadets and even at home, right? Because security is not just in the organization, it's not in the private firm, it's not at your company, it's also very important at home, because you don't want to take that potential security risk, move it from the home space back into the workspace. Okay. So security awareness. there's understanding the risks, recognizing those risks, and then you want to make sure on the last decision, what can I do to reduce those risks? And there's tons of risks out there nowadays. As Pierre was mentioning, it's a profitable business, right? Lots of ransomware out there that infects, encrypts all the files, and the next thing you know, you have to pay a ransom to get access to your information. So what's important about security awareness and why should we be aware? Well, number one is you need to protect that sensitive information. In your case, sure, from the personal side, it would be bank accounts. The most important from an air cadet's perspective is keeping the personal information protected, right? The privacy of the cadets, especially cadets, because a lot of them are minors, right? So you want that information protected. And as well, protect your friends and coworkers. So one of the biggest things that the hackers are going to try to do, right? They're going to social engineer, and they're very, very good at social engineering. They have various different means of doing that. They can impersonate people through an email, right? Phishing. They can take a phone call and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, you got to do this. And I think we've all gotten the calls from CRA or the calls from, what is it, shared services that they're going to arrest you and stuff like that. It's just all a scam, and they're trying to get you by tricking you and impersonating someone else. So phishing, this is the biggest one, right? It's the most one that's trending, and it has two forms, right? It all starts from an email. And most times they're trying to harvest your credentials. So harvesting your credentials is I'm trying to get your user ID and your password. And the first thing I like to get would be access to your Gmail, access to your Outlook.com, access to your Office 365 Exchange email. Those are the passwords that I am looking for. Well, not me per se. That's what the hackers are looking for, and they're going to try to phish you on those, right? Other things that potentially will occur in a phishing email, they're going to try to impersonate someone and trick you into downloading a file, which may then infect your computer, right? And then the last thing is they'll try also to get sensitive information, whether it be bank account informations, lists of people, and they always target fear, curiosity, greed, and empathy. And a lot of times there's a sense of urgency. Can you do this? Don't call me. I'm in a meeting right now. Send me a bunch of iTunes gift cards. If anyone's in the management like Pierre, he may get those. He may be the one that's being phished, right? Because he's the leader. So his coworkers and potentially you guys will get emails that are pretending to be Pierre, and they're not. And in this training, we're going to try to show you some of the things to recognize in those phishing emails. So here's an example, phishing email. This one's kind of obvious, right? Because the email says from get hacked. There's tons of English errors, right? So there's a few things in here that you want to look at. And sometimes it's not as obvious as this. Sometimes it can come from a trusted partner whose email is infected. So biggest thing I can emphasize is be vigilant, right? You think it's coming from Pierre, but it may not be coming from Pierre, right? So you really want to check, who's it coming from? Who is sending me this email? What is the context, right? So with respect to me, should I actually be receiving an email like this, right? And what is the content? Does the content actually make any sense? If it's talking about a conference that you've never attended, well, obviously it makes no sense. Right away, top of your list, it's more likely phishing. So email spoofing. This is where, and the two can be combined, right? You can phish and spoof at the same time, right? So I'm going to pretend that I'm Pierre. So in the from subject, I will have Pierre Forgs, but I'll have some sort of non-Air Cadet League email, right? Oh, I just saw a spelling error. I'll have to fix that one. Sorry. And you got to, one of the biggest things that I see in organizations is the from is showing the leader's name, but the email is coming from some very obscure domain, which makes no sense. And one of the things you always want to ask yourself is, why would Pierre send me an email that is business oriented, that has to do with Air Cadets, from any other email than the Air Cadet League of Canada, right? He would not. So right away, top your list. If you really aren't sure, type in his Air Cadet League email, ask him, did you send me this email? No, right? 99% of the chance he's going to say no, and more like the 99.99. So check those. The other things that you want to look at is if it's sending to an undisclosed list. So you don't see who it's going to, right? You don't even see your name, because that means they're blind carbon copying. And that's a telling time that it is potentially a spoofed phishing email. And also free email services. So we've talked a bit about this one. One thing you want to do is obviously always check the email sender. Should you already have this information, right? Do I need to get this again? Were you expecting such a request? And does the email make any sense, right? Should you be transferring money or something? No, it makes no sense. Why would that happen? I do know, some cases where this goes back a while, they would send on fear that, hey, I'm stranded in another country. I need a bit of money to get out of the hospital, blah, blah, blah. And next, people are wiring who they thought was their friend money. When in doubt, pick up the phone and call your friend or call your coworker. Be suspicious of anything that offers little effort and asks for personal information, right? If they're just saying, send me this, then you're going, well, that makes no sense. Why do you want me to send this to you, right? Grammatical mistakes are another big one. We all do make mistakes, but you can kind of, when you're reading this email saying, oh my God, this makes absolutely no sense. There's a lot of spelling errors, there's grammatic errors. And the other one that they like to do is put in links and attachments. And I'll go through later on in the slides how to detect or how to inspect a link so that you don't just go widely clicking on links. And attachments, very high risk. Unless you're supposed to be getting something, I would not open that attachment. And the biggest thing that you want to do is your IT department says, hey, send me your password. No one should ever ask for your password. I'm also in the IT business. I will never ask a user for their password, because I usually have permissions to reset their passwords. I would never need to know their password anyway. So never ever reply in an email your password. If anyone ever asks you and it's a legit person, tell them that that information is sensitive and I will not disclose it. So here's something coming from the organization. There's an example here. We're saying it's from the Air Cadet Director, right? I could have changed this and it could have been Pierre Forex. Now you're thinking, oh, it's coming from the Air Cadet Director. I really want to answer this, right? And here, what they're trying to do is, can you run a special errand? And they'll get you to try to do something. And they'll never ask you to call them because they don't have that phone number. One thing, Pierre, I can't remember, did you guys implement external tags on your Office 365 emails?
We did for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So
it just got a little bit cumbersome, to be honest. When the email goes back and forth, the external notification or header just keeps getting larger. So
okay.
So we took it off.
Okay. So in your organization, you may see some of this, right? That it's coming from an external source. You would see a banner, you would see an external tag. So I won't focus too much on that since that's been removed from the Office 365. Once again, more grammar mistakes. As you can see, those external tags. And if you look at that email, why would an Air Cadet Director have such an obscure email like that one? Prez002. It makes absolutely no sense. spelling, no capitalization. Okay, here's the one. To click or not to click. When in doubt, do not click, right? The biggest thing I can train you on this one is hover over the link, right? So do not click on it, even though the text shows you it looks like a valid link, right? And I'm gonna do a demo here to show you why the link may not be valid. Oops. And the show. So let's go to a little Word document. So this may look like cbc.ca, right? This is just text. What you see at the front is text. There's always a link hiding under it. So when I click on this, where's it going? It went to CNN.com. Why did it go to CNN.com? Because I didn't do something that I told you guys to do, which is hover over that link. I'm not sure if it shows up in the presentation, but when you hover over it, now I'm seeing it right now, but hopefully it's getting shared. It shows CNN.com. So always hover over the link, regardless of what the text is displaying, because what they'll do is they'll display something that looks like a link. So, and sometimes they just put words, right? And they masquerade on that. So always hover over that link. Do not click. Okay, so inspecting these links. So now you've hovered over the links. Now, how do we know what is a valid link versus a not? Like the CNN versus CBC, that's obvious. So in this first link, the most important pieces I could show you is everything to the right of that first / is useless. You don't look at that. You look at everything to the left, right? So in this case, what I'm seeing are the first two words to the left are the most important. PayPal.com. That is the domain. We know PayPal's a registered business. PayPal.com is their domain. So this link would be good. The next one, it says PayPal.com, but it also has a bunch of things after it, which is .sales-by.cn. So what's before the first / the two words before it? Sales-by.cn. When it's always where the dots are, right? So there's a hyphen there. You can ignore that. So this domain is owned by sales-by.cn, and they're creating subdomains to make them look like PayPal.com. So this link is not valid. This link is not good. The next one kind of looks like the Royal Bank, right? And it's not obvious maybe in the PowerPoint, but what's wrong? That's not an O, that's a 0, right? So a lot of times the hackers will squat on these domains and change a few letters here and there to make it look like a valid domain. And then you quickly click on that and you're going to the wrong spot. So when in doubt, you can also say, well, if I have to go to the Royal Bank to do something, why don't I just type in rbc.com, right? Or royalbank.com, go to it, log in. I don't have to be clicking on links. Okay, here's a good one. And this one's caught a few people. It's the good password reset email. So this one looks like Office 365, looks like it's coming from it's going to someone in the Air Cadet League. It's also coming from the exec director of the Air Cadet League. And what it's telling you, if you read that, is saying your password expires in 2 days. What did I say? Fear. So they're saying, oh my God, your password is going to expire in 2 days. They're instilling fear. And so they want you to click on that link. If you were to hover over that link, you would probably see that it wasn't going to office.com. It was going somewhere else. And all these Office logos are just things that they put through into the email. And if you read this, what are they saying? Keep my current password. So when you click on this link, because I've dissected this one to see what they were actually trying to do, when you click on this link, it'll say, please enter your password to update your password. Why, if I want to keep the same password, would you have to re-enter it? This one is 100% what I said, harvesting credentials. They are trying to trap you into giving your current password. They really don't want you to change the password. But even if they do, if you did change the password into their fake system, they would still have knowledge of that password, right? Because you usually have to give your original password and then you enter your new password. So once again, do not ever click on these links and reset your passwords, because next thing you know, they have your access to your email. So I mentioned a few of these in past slides. What you can do if you're really not sure is you can ignore that email and send a fresh email to the person that you know you have a contact with. You can text message, you can Teams message, IM, you can phone call, right? So that's a couple of the things that you can do. Pierre, is there some questions? Because I see a lot of chats.
No, I don't have the chats were administrative in nature.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
didn't have any questions per se.
No problem.
But if you go back one slide, I guess I wasn't sure. So it's possible for an email to come in that would actually say from exec.dir Oh, because it's misspelled.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. Yeah, I see what you're saying. But if it's spelled properly, then it's okay, right?
There is a possibility that you could have been spoofed, right? I can bounce emails off of a mail server that spoof, but I'm never going to get the response, because if it was your valid email and they replied, then it would go to you. But I can spoof if you don't have the right security controls in place, right? And some of the biggest control, I won't talk here because those controls you and I can take offline, but there are controls in place that you can prevent that type of spoofing. But if you're wide open to it, you may be able to do that spoofing attack. So once again,
definitely have to talk offline then.
Yeah.
Get some more information from you.
But it's a good thing that people should, even though the from kind of looks valid, the context of this email is incorrect, right? It doesn't make any sense. You should never have to reset your password this way. Don't open attachments from questionable sources, right? Your friends can be compromised. Your trusted partners can be compromised. Pierre's account could be compromised, right? He could have been harvested. I doubt he would be, but there's always that possibility, right? So if the context and the content aren't there, do not trust that email. You obviously can't send the email because the hacker has it. Pierre may not be able to see it in time. You have to call him. That's the best way. Okay, passwords. So one of the key things that you can do to protect yourself is to have a strong password. It used to be 8 characters was strong enough. Now I can pretty much hack almost all passwords that are 8 characters in 3 days, right? Because there's so many databases out there. More likely your password is in one of those databases. And Pierre, I'll send you a link that you can maybe send an email to everyone. I'll give you a link where you can actually enter your password in clear text, and it's called Have I Been Pawned? And it will tell you if your password is in the dark web. And when I say dark web, it's been compromised from some website and it's circulating around and they have your password. So what you should do is, if your password does meet or is in that breach password list, change it right away.
Which is the reason why they keep telling you not to use the same password twice in various sites.
Yeah, and that's coming up. We'll reemphasize that one here as well. So the going standard now, and I know some people may be rolling their eyes, 12 characters long. Now that we're going to 12 characters, it's very hard to just do random characters. There's no one that's going to remember random passwords of 12 characters. So what I always suggest is use 2 disjunct words or 3 small disjunct words separated by a special character, the same special character, capitalize one letter and put a number, and you can remember 2 or 3 words, right? You can't remember 12 random characters. So those are kind of the things that you want to look at. The best thing you can do if your password gets compromised, the hacker should need what's called a second factor or multi-factor authentication, or also known as 2-factor authentication. And the big players like Office 365, Outlook.com, Gmail, G Suite, they all have the ability to enable per user multi-factor authentication. There are slides at the end. I won't walk through those steps, and we will share these slides with you in a PDF format, and you can check on how to get that multi-factor enabled on Gmail or Office 365. So here's some good passwords. Like I was telling you, the 3 disjunct words. These are kind of long, right? I can remember these things, but not everyone, doesn't enter their password very often, so they will not remember that. Bad passwords. I do password audits for clients, and I kid you not, I see the variation of password in probably 20% of people's passwords. And I wish I could see everyone on video, because I bet you some people are going, and they're rolling their eyes going, oh my God, yeah, that's me. Don't use things that are part of the business, right? Cadet should not ever be part of your password, right? So no matter, I'll tell you one thing, changing the S's to $signs, changing the A to commercial ad, changing the 0 or the O to a 0, the L's to 1 or the I's to 1, that doesn't work, because the hacking software, they do that's called leet technology, leading, where you're substituting those characters. All password hacking dictionaries or attacks, the software, do that test. They'll take the dictionary word and they'll lead it, right? They'll swap out all those characters. So you're not adding extra security by doing that. What you would add extra security, and I don't like this word, if you were to put a special character between pass and word. Okay, what to avoid? Single dictionary words. Most of them are easy to crack, and most of them are probably in the compromised breach database already. Do not write down your password. There are free password safes out there, and we'll talk about them a little later. Use those. Actually, they're right there. LastPass and 1Password if you're a Mac user, LastPass, and they all have an online presence, a cloud presence, so you could actually use those. You can even use the Chrome the Chrome Password Manager. It's very safe, and actually, they just released in Chrome that they will check your passwords that are stored in there against the breached database. So it'll already tell you, hey, we're seeing your password on the dark web. So that's the Chrome Password Manager. I know everyone likes to put birthdays. People like to put their spouse's name or their kid's name. Definitely bad things. Where you were born, another bad one. And technical words for you guys, it would be more words that are part of your business, right? Airplane, a plane, cadets, air, try to avoid that. Reverse spelling words is not a good tactic either. And like Pierre mentioned, do not use the same password for everything, right? Especially your personal passwords should be different than your corporate organizational Air Cadet passwords. And do not share your password. No one should ever know your password except yourself.
Before we move on, Tim, you mentioned Chrome. What about Safari and Microsoft Edge or other browsers? I think I had read at one point, that maybe from the makers of the password safes that these were not to be trusted. But are other browsers typically good at safeguarding your password?
So it's kind of funny because Edge, the new on Windows 10, maybe not the old one, but the newer one is actually Chrome. It's a Chromium. It's based off the Chromium software. So they are pulling in the exact same extensions as you'll see in Chrome. So it's just, they're going to be pretty much the same. For Safari, there are password safes. I would say for Safari, I would just avoid, if there's, I don't know if there's one built in, I would use LastPass or 1Password. 1Password's a Mac tool, right? It's a Mac OS tool. And now that you're saying Safari, I would recommend 1Password. I use them both.
Yeah, we use them both. I use 1Password on my Mac at home, and we use LastPass at the office, and we like it very much. It's very easy to use, and you can have 12, 16 alphanumeric anything.
Yep.
You don't have to remember the password, sort of thing of beauty. We've had a couple of questions come in from the part, I think, dealing with the clicking on messages and phishing attempts. One question is, should we report any of these attempts? If so, to whom? Now you gotta understand, Kim, we have sort of a varied audience tonight. Not all of them are on the national Office 365. There's some folks out there from as far as BC and in the Maritimes, but that are using their own provincial systems. So, and I think there might actually be an insurance requirement there in terms of having an identified point of contact for reporting an attempt. But what would you recommend in terms of who do you report this to?
Yeah, so most of my clients, what they end up doing is they create, because you can create like distribution emails, they create a phishing at aircadetleague.com, right? And people would send phishing, and then it would go to a group of users at the national level. I'm not sure how the provincial works. Would they have some sort of
they have their own
IT
domains.
people?
Yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. The larger provinces, yes. I'm not entirely familiar, but I like that idea of having a phishing at aircadetleague.com. We could centralize the reporting function.
Yeah.
And then just let everybody know that there's been an attack. I guess that would be useful information.
Yeah, so what I typically do is a lot of them are like, okay, yeah, sure, it's pretty standard. If there's one that looks extremely tricky, where I think a lot of users are going to get caught on it, then we send out an awareness bulletin saying, hey, we're seeing this trend, we're seeing this email type. Be cautious, do not open this email, do not click on any links.
Yeah, okay. I think what I'll do as a follow-up is there's about 5 or 6 provinces that have their own domains in Office 365. 2 or 3 have Office networks that are accessible remotely, which is another issue. But we'll follow up and see what we can do from a sort of pan Air Cadet League coordination point of view. I also have another question. People tend to click on messages that appeal to them. Is there a system control that could be installed to verify that the user wants to open the link?
Is there a control to prevent the user from opening the link? That's hard to answer. It's hard to have dialogue on that question. So let me try to kind of think where the question was going.
I think he's saying, is there anything we could, rather than leave it to the operator to do to detect the bad links, is it possible to have sort of an embedded capability within your email system that says that checks these, like a virus checker, right? I think that's the question here. Is there such a thing like a virus checker that would, check the links for you and say, hey, danger, warning, this doesn't look right. Does that exist?
So that does exist. None of the provinces, they all use Office, right? None of them use G Suite.
I don't know.
Okay.
For a fact. I think predominantly it's Office, yes. But
Yes. So guaranteed, because I'm on the admin side of both G Suite and Office 365. There's emails that you guys are not getting onto your Office 365 emails, and they get sent to me, right? And it shows me that this email has malicious content, has been filtered out, and you guys never know about it, right? Because the email gets delivered to us and it gets stripped down. So if it makes it past those filters, then it's more likely going to be some sort of harvesting type of phishing email, and those links are hard to find, right? They're just hard to detect. But when the link has a redirect to a malicious site, typically the big players will stop you and give you a warning. Hey, you're clicking on this link. Do not proceed. It is known to be malicious. But there is an overriding. You can say proceed and go to that site anyway. So if you do get one of these warnings, follow it. Do not click proceed, right? So there are tools that are built in, but most of the phishing ones, extremely hard for a tool to detect it, right? So is there?
And there was a question, I think you've answered. Our application like 1Password where we can store all our passwords. Is this safe? And I think the answer is yes. It's
yes, no, for sure.
Yeah, storing them there is safe, but you still need to make sure you follow the rules. Don't repeat the passwords. Even if you have the same password stored in the 1Password several times, you're still not necessarily ahead of the game.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Another question, is he going to cover the fact that we have to use MFA for our cyber insurance to be valid? No. I think that was made clear in my email, my invitation to this webinar, that in order for it's not for our insurance to be valid, but for our insurance not to be canceled, we need to have everybody that is on a corporate email domain take this security training. That's a new requirement from this year. So a follow-up to the question regarding is there a system control that could be installed? Is I think he's talking about a prompt. If a link is clicked, then can a prompt be shown for the user to continue that they want to go to that link?
Yeah, so if the link is going to a malicious site, Chrome will stop you if it knows that that site is malicious, and will give the big red page with saying, hey, safety, I can't remember the exact words, but there's a security concern. Do you want to proceed? This site is known to be malicious. Right. So there is some sort of prompting, right? Because anytime you click on the link, it typically will open a browser, and whatever your default browser is. Yeah. But back on the multi-factor, Pierre, really want to stress that it's something easy, and it's something that I've seen my clients get saved on lots of times. Because probably at least every 6 months, there's someone that gets phished, clicks on this. Next thing you know, they're getting random multi-factor push notifications from their phone. They tell me, I said, your password's got to be compromised. I said, well, I've never done anything. And then I go through their emails with them. They go, oh yeah, I did answer that one, right? So multi-factor is like a safety mechanism, right? It's like a life buoy for you to grab onto and prevent those hackers. So if you do get phished and your password gets compromised, they cannot get in. They can get in if you accept the push notification on your two-factor, right? So that's another thing. Do not randomly accept or approve push notifications if you do have two-factor enabled, right? If you get it, you didn't do anything, reject.
Good. I think that that's all the questions for now.
Okay. So one thing, the next category is more like malicious software. You know, everyone's heard of ransomware. That's where they encrypt all your files and then they hold your files at ransom, right? And, you know, people have asked me, hey, Kim, can you decrypt these? You know, and I could say, sure, but it's impossible to decrypt these. And you have to either recover from backups or pay the ransom. So some of these different viruses, there's Trojans. It looks like a valid program, but there's hidden malicious code within that program. Going to web pages, there could be code in those web pages that do malicious things, maybe redirect you to a malicious site. There's browser, oh, that was the browser hijacking. I combined the two in the one there. There's direct action virus. This is where you get an email with a file attachment and it's in exe and you open it and it's got code in there that does certain things to your computer, which could be ransomware, it could be anything, or downloads more malicious code, creates a backdoor into your computer. There's many things that it can do. And then there's the macro virus, which is usually, you know, you have those Word doc M's, just the Word file that is full of macros, and those macros have malicious codes in them because they're executing things to do the macro. And the macro is just kind of an automated way of processing things within your document. But you can write bad code to do certain things, right? So you got to be careful of those. Today, most of your Word will have macros disabled and it will prompt you to, hey, do you want to run this document with macros enabled? If you don't know where that document came from, you do not enable macros. Common ways of getting, always open attachments, right? Links is probably the biggest one. Checking online ads. A lot of online ads are malicious content. So I typically run a browser that strips out all of the ads, right? It's based off of Chrome. It's called Brave, and it denies all ads. There's no ads that come into my browser. If you want your browser to work faster, take off all the ads. Unpatched software, right? So you have Windows 10 at home on your personal computer. Are you regularly updating the Windows 10, right? Are you updating your other software like Adobe Reader? Are you updating Java if you've got it installed? Are you updating your browser, which is the most important piece because that's probably two things you use the most, your browser and your mail client. If you're using the browser to read your mail, well, then it's just the browser. Patch, keep that software up to date because hackers are always finding bugs in the software, which can then potentially lead to malicious code being installed on your computer. Social media is probably the number one method, or second method that's popular. Email is probably number one. And they always say, hey, I saw you in this video, or hey, I saw you in this picture. And then you know it makes no sense. I was never there, but you're curious to see, do they have a picture on me? And then you click on it and you open it. Next thing you know, you're infected, right? And do not download unofficial software, pirated music from various high-risk websites. So these are a few things. I think we all know some of the things, and some people may have been impacted by malicious software. It's not fun. It's a lot of work, and you do lose some of your data, right? It could erase data, could encrypt the data, which is the last one, ransomware, can corrupt files, steal passwords, because they install a keylogger on your machine. So every password you type in is going to get transmitted up to whatever the remote hacker is doing. They can spam your contacts once you're infected, or just take over your computer in general. So when do you suspect that you may have a virus? Your computer is getting really slow. Now,
before we move on, Kim, there's a couple of questions that come in. He's talking. We've been told by the insurance company about having a number of special technical settings, security settings implemented, and one of the 4 new security settings we need is to set up incoming email to be scanned for malicious attachments and or links. The question is, do you know how this can be done for G Suite?
Yeah, well, G Suite already does it, so I'm not sure if that would qualify for it.
So that it does it all the time. You don't have to set it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's already doing it, and
It's built in.
Yes.
Okay. So I think the answer would be this meets the insurance requirement then. I'm not familiar with G Suite. This is connected with Gmail or
Yeah, so G Suite's like Office 365. You know how there was Hotmail,
yeah,
Outlook.com,
yeah,
and then the business one is Office 365. Well, Gmail is the consumer side.
yeah.
G Suite is the business side. So I can have my domain,
Yeah.
right? So my domain is actually looks like regular email, but it's actually a G Suite email. It's
Mhm.
built on the same platform as Gmail. It's just more the commercial paid version of it.
Oh, I see. Other question is, what can you tell us about non-approved certificates message coming up when you believe the site is valid? I've had
Yeah.
that, I've had that up, and when you're, you're dealing with a reputable dealer, but for some reason you get this message. I typically myself, I've ignored it. So far, so good. But is that something that should be done?
Yeah, so it's hard to accept a certificate that's not valid, because what could be happening is there's a man in the middle attack going on. So you think you're going to google.com, but someone's intercepting that, and they're relaying the information. They're stealing the information, then relaying it to Google, and then they're taking the responses and sending them to the user. So the user thinks everything's normal, but someone's in the middle spoofing all of this. So I have a hard time accepting any certificate that's expired or incorrect. So it's
Okay, so that's a good tip there to not assume that you are in fact on a valid site. That might actually be part of the deception here.
if it's someone that's like it's another company, and you can talk to them and say, hey, you're getting a certificate error. And the best thing to do is, if you have that domain, go into your browser incognito or private mode, depending what browser you have, type in the domain yourself and see if you're getting the certificate error as well. If you are, then it's more likely someone hasn't done their job and let the certificate expire.
Another question regarding the insurance requirements here. Another security setting is antivirus. We need to make sure we have antivirus software running. So the question is, do we need, and I guess this is in an office setting. This is not at the national level, but at one of the provincial offices. So do we need this on all devices? For us, this would include all devices used by the staff, directors, and external. Now he's talking about devices. You understand our structure, right? There's some volunteers. Many of our directors are actually working from home. Some are working in an office. All of them may be on Microsoft 365. Business email have been given to each squadron's committee members. There's hundreds of email accounts. So is this a central setting, or is this something that, like my understanding? Let me answer the question and tell me if I'm correct. My understanding is correct. My understanding is, from the insurance company's point of view, is they're concerned about the settings in Office 365. Say for this example, we're using Office 365, and having MFA and virus checking and the like set up on Office 365, which people can access from home, either through an application or through web, and and it's not so much about what the individuals at the home computer have got set up. It's more about the requirement is more about what the Office 365 account, other than the login and the MFA, of course.
Yeah, so I was going to touch on that in a few more slides, but
Okay, no, that's fine. If you want to defer to
well, now that the context is
Bill,
there, I'm not sure if
yeah.
that's the next slide. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's coming. Oh yeah, it's that one there. It's coming.
We can wait until you get to it then.
Okay, and I'll just remind me to refer back to that question there.
Yeah.
So if your computer's slowing right down, and you have different home pages when you open your browser, there's a lot of many emails are getting sent out from your computer, and people are telling you, hey, did you send me this email? As soon as someone says, did you send me this email, and you didn't, you're infected, right? Either your email password's compromised or your computer's compromised, right? So it could be one or the other, or potentially both. Frequent crashes, unknown programs that are starting, and you're getting password resets, right? Why am I getting a password reset? I didn't initiate that. But on the slow computer, that could be just a Windows thing. It was really bad with Windows 7. It's gotten better with Windows 10. I know with Windows 7, you used to have to best bet was to reimage your machine at least once a year, because it would just get slow and slow and slow. And that did not necessarily mean you were infected. It just, the way Windows 7 was designed and all the registry changes and stuff like that, it just accumulates and slows right down. But much better in Windows 10. How do you protect yourself? Back to that question about the antivirus. Well, on Windows 10, and hopefully no one has Windows 7. Windows 7 has been end of life for quite some time. Everyone should be using some sort of form of Windows 10. And they have what's called Windows Defender on it, and it's really good, and it's free. So you can go in there. There's a slide here that shows some of the settings that you would want to make sure. You want, for sure, real-time protection. And that would, Pierre, cover your case of, do I have an antivirus installed, right? It's free, and it will cover that use case. If you have additional money and you want to be really secure, the number one antivirus, and I do use it for some of my clients, and I don't resell it, so I'm not trying to make the money here, is CrowdStrike. It no longer uses virus definitions, and it's more based on behaviors, and it's built on a framework, and it accurately stops everything. Very, very good program. It is a little bit pricier, so if you don't have the money, Windows Defender will do very well.
Is there Kim, is there a free one that you would recommend for Mac users?
Yeah, it's coming up on a slide.
Okay.
Yeah, there's one that comes already built into it. Do not download software from an unofficial source. That'll get you every time, because it looks good. Wow, it's running, but it's also installing something else, right? There you go, Pierre. There's your question. Mac owners, X-Protect. It's built in. If honest to God, I'm a Mac user. I'm also a Vigilant user, but it's very, very hard to infect Mac OS or Linux machines. A lot easier to infect Windows machines, harder to infect these. Not that they're impossible, but there are very few viruses that impact those. And when they do, they're not as widespread as the damage that it gets done on Windows. And you just want to make sure everything's up to date. You can read this slide, kind of figure out how I'm going to get all these software updates and make sure that X-Protect is on there by default.
What about, Kim, where a lot of people are checking their emails on their phone? What about iOS and Android and etc.?
Yes, so very, very, like, Android's gotten better. iOS is still the number one not to be infected. It's extremely, extremely hard. I don't know the last time I've seen a iOS Apple virus. Androids exist, and it typically people get infected with Android when they go to untrusted stores. What they call it is they root to their phone. iOS can get malware when they jailbreak their phone. I don't know if people still do that these days, but when you go to untrusted Google Play stores, that's when your trouble is occurring, right? Because that's where the hackers go. Google does a good job at scanning all of the software that goes on there. Once they detect something, they get kicked out, right? And they're never coming back. So I'm not a big believer in the antivirus on the phones because I don't think there's much to it. I think if you're just vigilant and doing what we're saying here, you should be fine. But definitely you want an antivirus on your computer. So I'll let you guys read this one later, but it kind of walks you through things to check for to make sure Windows Defender's on. And the one that you want is number 5. After you go through all these settings, is make sure real-time protection is on. Okay.
Basically, Kim, your answer then is you should have a virus software, and you recommended some in your presentation here on basically every computer, especially since they're free. Why not, right? You're not just having a central settings in Office 365 is not enough. You need a virus checker on every computer.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because you don't know, like you bring in a USB key that's got an infection.
Yeah.
Well, Office 365 is not going to help you with that, right?
Right.
You need your Windows 10 antivirus to kick in. Pierre, do we have a hard stop at 8?
No. I didn't know how long it would take, so I didn't actually publicize.
Oh, okay.
The end. We're getting a good discussion, but
Okay.
folks, if if you have somewhere to go, somewhere you must go, then as Kim pointed out, we will publish the presentation. I'll put this on the website, and I'll send an email to all attendees giving you the link. And it's a good link. Trust me, you can open that one.
That's a good one. So maybe because the most important one, let me skip through these and I'll come back to them if people have to leave. I'm trying to file sharing. Okay, this one is the most important one for you guys since you deal with a lot of personal information, private information. The best way to transfer information is through OneDrive SharePoint, the Office 365. If you are a Gmail user, well, then use the Google Drive. It's better to share a link than to share a file attachment. Problem is, your computer gets stolen, your password gets compromised, they access that thing, your email or whatever, they get access to the raw file. If it's a link into OneDrive SharePoint, they actually have to click on the link and then authenticate, put your username, a password to get access to the file. So if there's one thing that you want to do on file sharing is use those cloud storages, right? Do not use a USB key unless, I should preface this, because there are some cases where you need to move information from one computer to the next and there's no network. Sure, USB key is valid, but use an encrypted USB key. And there's some cheap ones out there. They're not all very expensive. You can get a cheap encrypted USB key. Problem is, if you have a non-encrypted USB key, you put all of the cadet information on there and then you lose that key. They're so easy to lose. Then that's when there's a privacy breach, and that's when you have to report it. I've lost 100,000 Air Cadet records, right? So best thing, try to avoid USB keys at all costs and try to use cloud storage when possible. So that was just
these encrypted keys. We use those at the national office, and they're very easy to use. So they are. I wondered how resilient they were. So you're saying these are good tools, and we should use them and trust them.
Yes, no, for sure. Well, I haven't analyzed all of them, but a lot of them are very good, and they also have the more expensive ones have hardware tampering on them. So if someone were to tamper with them, they would get all erased. So it is very strong. It's definitely way better than the non-encrypted ones, and I would recommend not using USB keys, period. But if that's your only mechanism to get from one domain to another domain, because there's no kind of network linkage, then do that. But now that you all have Office 365, or you, Pierre, have Office 365, you can share stuff through that quite easily, right?
Yes.
The peer-to-peer stuff, no, you don't want to be using that stuff unless it's peer-to-peer for valid file transfers. And you want to avoid exposing sensitive information, right, when you're transferring files around. And the only problem with OneDrive and SharePoint, there's another risk that could occur, that you give accidental permissions to the wrong person, right? So you add someone that shouldn't have been, but that's the same risk where I send an email to the wrong person. You know, I start typing in Pierre and it's a different Pierre that pops up. I don't look at it. I quickly hit enter. Next thing you know, he's getting an email of sensitive information that he shouldn't. So if you're really sending out sensitive information, check who you're sending to. Double check, make sure. Okay, so I'm just gonna go back because I wanted to make sure file sharing was done, because I know that was an important one for you, Pierre. Wi-Fi. So we all love our Wi-Fi. We love it at the airports when there's public Wi-Fi. Please try to use only Wi-Fi that has what they call the secure lock on it. Any open Wi-Fis, be very leery of it, unless you're seeing signs at the airport that says, here's our Wi-Fi hotspot, stuff like that, and you can connect to it. But what happens is, if they're not using security on the Wi-Fi, everything that you send across the wireless network is in the clear text, and anyone that's intercepting that with a scanner or something can get all your information in the clear. So if by chance you have to use a public Wi-Fi that's wide open, your next best bet is to have a VPN, a personal VPN service, right? So you register for a service that will basically encrypt your transport channel from point A to point B. So anything going across the Wi-Fi will actually be encrypted and secure. But in most cases, just try to avoid those open Wi-Fi hotspots. So sometimes
we had a question come in, Kim. For the file sharing in Office 365, which one is it? Is it SharePoint that it's called?
Yeah, they have both, right? So
Yeah.
the OneDrive is usually the personal space of a user.
Yeah.
And the SharePoint is the organizational space,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So if you create, I'm not sure, are you guys using Teams?
No, well, you know, some of the folks out there might be. At the national office, we haven't.
Okay.
And I guess, mea culpa, I'm learning tonight that I've always stayed away from the Office 365 tools there, thinking, you know, they were not secure. I'm not sure why I thought that, but I'm glad to hear tonight that this is actually an option that, in terms of secure file sharing. The tools that come with 365 are actually robust and trustworthy.
Yeah, and it's important that you have the right permissions on it, right? So if you leave that wide open to everyone, then everyone can access that file. So you always have to have granular permissions on it. So typically you share a file with someone. And even in the Exchange, the Office 365, you should be able to select encrypt the email, right? If it's sensitive information, you can say encrypt. And then when you encrypt it, the receiving party has to actually click on a link, which then brings them to a web-based email, right? And sometimes it asks them to send me the code that went to your email, right? So as a second factor to see that you are truly who you are. So there are various tools within Office 365 that you probably should start exploring to make this your lives easier.
That sounds that's remarkable. So that's a real eye opener for me. I think we will follow up with you, Kim, and for everybody, all the users out there, maybe we can publish a little. Did you know? How to explore the security features that we have already as a licensed user.
Do you know what your license is, Pierre?
It's a business. What's it called? Microsoft 365.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to. I don't know what levels the encryption piece comes in, so I may have spoken wrong on that. There, you may not have the license for it.
Okay. So
But
that's the information we need to. We'll follow up. That's a good question from Mark in Manitoba. We'll follow up and get you a good answer for everybody here, a detailed answer on how to exploit 365 security features and what account level do you need in order to do so. I think that's a really good question.
I have a test domain for Office 365, so I can play with any license I want. I just buy it. So I think right now I probably have a basic and another pro license or something. I can see if that comes with the encryption, and if it does, I'll just take screenshots of that test domain and show you guys, or I'll send them to you and you can distribute.
Yep, perfect.
How can you protect? So on the Wi-Fi, you definitely, if it's a Wi-Fi like not at home or something, you don't want to auto connect. Do not check off the auto connect, because then every time you go to that spot, it's going to auto connect and you may not even know that you've connected. The other thing that you want to know is you're visiting a website. It's asking you for a user ID login password. Is this site using HTTPS? And all the browsers show you at the top, they show that certificate icon or that lock icon, the padlock. If that padlock's not there and you click on the URL in the browser and it says HTTP instead of HTTPS, I would not be putting my password in there. It may not be a legit site, and that means they're receiving, stuff that's not encrypted. And worst cases, they may be not even hashing and securing your password when they send it across, which means they have the clear text password. Most good applications will secure the password, hash it, and when they receive it, they can't reverse that hash. It's impossible to reverse that hash. It's mathematically impossible. So what they end up doing is they take what they have in the database and they compare the hashes to see if they match. If they match, they let you in. If they don't match, they say invalid password. But they never know what your password is. If you hit password reset on some of your services and they return you your password in the clear in your email, that means they're not using hashing. They may be encrypting it, but they have access to the clear text password. I would not be using that service at all. It's guaranteed. Anyone that returns, majority of people nowadays, they return you a link. You click on the link, you enter your new password. They never have to have knowledge of your password. Firewalls, most of the tools, Mac OS, Windows, they have firewalls settings, and you can even add rules if you want to get crafty and block certain sites if you want. Certain traffic's not allowed out by default, but if you want to get even more secure, you can play around with that. I did talk about the VPN. I don't think you guys have branch tunnels VPNs, so it'd be more on the personal VPN. You can subscribe to a VPN service. If you really don't trust anyone when you're on outside of your own network, then you can launch the personal VPN. It'll protect from point A to point B. Already talked. So this is more on the mobile devices. So on the iPhones, I don't have the Android settings, but on the iPhones, you can say ask to join networks. And there's also the auto join hotspots. You want to have that set to ask to join. Definitely you do not want to have auto connect enabled. File sharing, we talked about that one. we're pretty much done. So in summary, inspect those links, right? Check those emails, check the from on the email, check the context, check the content. Do not click on a link, hover over that link. And if you're still in doubt, you don't understand it, do not click on it. You're better off to type what you think is how to get to that website. Good password practice, I know it's tough. I would use the multiple word combination is the better plan. Or if you don't really need to type in that password and you can use LastPass, then make it completely random, right? Because you don't need to know it. It's going to autofill for you. LastPass will autofill when you go to a website. Obviously, phone passwords and stuff like that, you can't use that. You have to type in your password. So that's when you want to try to be creative on those ones. Try not downloading anything that you think potentially could be from a high-risk site. Avoid opening those attachments. Only use trusted websites to download your software. Those high-risk ones are tempting, but do not do it. The public Wi-Fi and hotspots, stay shy of those unless they're secure. Always use HTTPS for any web logon. If it's just a regular website with no logon, then there's no risk, right? It's when you have to put in your user ID and password. VPN antivirus application, it's free on Windows. Do it. Make sure your software is up to date, and make sure you disable auto connect. And that's it. There's a few slides in the background. I'll let you guys go through those, but it's kind of showing you how to set up two-factor for Gmail and Microsoft. Questions?
We don't have any. Oh, wait a minute. We got one just came in here. Do you consider passphrases secure?
Is that so? For a passphrase, I'm thinking they're taking a long sentence and they use the first letter of each of word. I think that's what they're talking about, passphrase. Yeah. Or are you talking about like a?
Well, I guess, yeah, I guess like
the fox jumped over the fence type thing.
Yeah, this kind of thing where I know a lot of people do that. They'll come up with a phrase that it's easier to remember and it's nonsensical. I guess you wouldn't want to use the quick brown fox because that's probably too common. But yeah. The orange cow, for example, is that something that from your perspective would be easy to break a password?
No, extremely hard to break things that are disjunct. So I'll give you a classic example. Ants eat bats. It makes no sense, right? An ant cannot eat a bat. A bat eats ants, but not the other way around. Yeah. So anything that makes no sense is a great passphrase. Anything that's popular makes it a little tougher, right? Because it's hard to crack though. They'll put in the dictionary attacks, they'll put in like, I love you is for sure in the attack dictionaries, right? There's some swear words in there. I won't mention those ones. But I would try to use things that make no sense. It's the easiest and they're easy to remember, right? Like when you make a crazy one, like ants eat bats, right? It's like makes no sense, and you're going to remember it because it's so stupid.
Yeah, that's the added advantage because it doesn't make sense. You tend to remember it.
So I'd avoid using that one I just said. I don't want 100 people using that one.
It's now in the public domain, yes. So I don't have any other questions on the Q&A. I do want to thank folks though that did put some questions. I think that really added to the presentation by having those questions come out. Some of the questions had to do with does this meet the insurance requirements? if you have questions of that nature, please do not hesitate to send that question to me via email. And I don't try to guess at those, and I refer those to our broker to ensure that we get 100% accuracy and not my interpretation of the policy. But I tried my best to answer the questions that, not that said, there's a couple of questions that came through tonight, and I gave you my answer as I understand it. But I will follow up with our insurance broker and double check the answers I gave you this evening to ensure they are valid. A question just came in. When can we expect a copy of the presentation? I'm actually on leave this week. I didn't. I kind of dropped the ball here, scheduling these webinars tonight and tomorrow night in French. But on the other hand, didn't have much choice because we had to do this by 1 September. And I'm happy to announce that the insurance company is already happy with the training package that Kim has put together and has always given it a thumbs up. The presentation will be made available on our website next week at the latest, if not sooner. I may send it out to Jose tomorrow and see if we can get it up there sooner. But for anybody that has missed the webinar tonight, which I think is it's a lot better when you can actually attend these things live and ask questions. For those that missed, the presentation will be available, and I plan to repeat this in the fall. The primary audience for insurance purposes is, as I mentioned in my email, is those that are using a business domain email, like at national aircadetleague.com, at aircadetleague.com. That implies that we have an account, and that that account is what a breach of that account is what the insurance policy that and other accounts similar at the provincial level is what the insurance policy protects. It doesn't protect every 8,000 members of the Air Cadets League individual email account with Gmail and the like, but it does provide data breach for the corporate domain names and for networks. Like we have a network at the national office that we access remotely, as do some of the larger provinces. We're protected for that. We're protected for a paper breach. If somebody's got a bunch of stuff written on paper, private information, and that becomes lost, we're insured. We have some protection against that. And primarily the insurance is about the reaction to the data breach, to make sure our reaction is in compliance with all the various statutes. So thanks very much, Kim. I think it was a really interesting presentation. Judging by all the questions that came in, I learned a whole bunch myself, and I will follow up with you and on those 2 or 3 issues. It has given me some ideas here of how we can maybe put some information out there for everybody that are using the more common tools like G Suite and Office 365, and some do's and don'ts, and how to really maximize the use of those tools from a computer security point of view. So thanks very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It was a pleasure, and hopefully people learned.
I think they did. So thank you all for spending some time with us this evening. Please, again, send me your emails if you have any questions or follow-up questions, things you didn't think about tonight. Be happy to entertain those questions. Take care. Thanks again, Kim.
Thanks. Bye.